Hey, welcome to Autoerotica. I'm JK, and today we're going to take a look at buying a BMW E53 X5. Now, these cars were first released in 1999. Makes it almost 22 years old, the design. This particular model is a 3-litre injection from 2006, the last of the E53. I bought it last year for just 7,000 Hong Kong dollars. And how's it stood up? The answer to that question is very well, actually. I've been looking for an X5 for a while. I've driven a few of these many times over the years, back when they were very popular. And I always had a little bit of an affection for them, including these 3-litre engines. Obviously the V8s were a much quicker car and felt much better. But age seems to have taken its toll on those V8 engines. They require seals, they require a lot of maintenance. I started looking for a 3-litre, various reasons. One, most of them are coil spring suspension, not the air suspension, so there's very few problems there. Secondly, the M54 straight 6 engine is one hell of an engine. Okay, so I guess one question is, how does she drive? I guess my answer would be, in 2006, superbly. In 2021, actually not too bad. The steering on this car is very heavy. Oh, there's the parking mode disabled. The cam. The steering is very heavy. I mean, it's the same as the E46 and even the E90 series. It's actually very weighty steering compared to cars now. I actually have a 2020 X5 40i waiting for exports, which I was driving the other week, and it's such a simple car to drive, very easy, very light steering, and does it move? But it's still got that essence of BMW. This has got heavy steering, but it doesn't make it any less agile. I'm quite surprised, actually. Let's go this way a second. Drive. Now, this engine is supposed to only put out, I think, 231 horsepower. I think some versions 218, and for some reason it doesn't seem to have any right to go as quick as it does. It's a big car for a 3-litre engine, and there's no turbos on this, it's all naturally aspirated, but it's just a cool engine. It really does work. Fuel economy, wow, pretty poor really. I'm here in Hong Kong, we've got hills everywhere, narrow roads. It's city, and that means I probably use a lot more gas, a lot more petrol than most other people, particularly in this. But it's such a good car, it's so practical. Now, as I said, there's been a few things that I've had to replace: tyres, radiator, expansion tank, and having the gearbox service last year. That was on me. I just wanted it done. It didn't have to be done. I just chose to have it done. So overall, the repairs, fixes have cost me as much as I paid for the car. And when you think I paid less than 1,000 US dollars for this, with I think I had about 4 or 5 months license, which is worth a good 4,500 of those dollars, I was actually able to take the car and just go and drive. I didn't need to do anything to it, to put it on the road. Gearbox I did just because I thought it would be better, you know, keep it going. Tyres, had no choice. And of course the radiator and expansion tank, etc. That's something you can't foresee. It had a little bit of a coolant leak last year, it just got worse. I had to have it done. But overall, the cost of ownership's been pretty low for a car that's now coming on its 15th year, particularly a BMW. And we all know what BMW's, the reputation they have. It's not been too bad. So let's go back on ourselves, and first, as I say, this engine, it goes a damn sight faster. There we go. There we go. And it sounds good as well. We're already at 80 clicks, 90. I better back off there. It really does go well. That's uphill as well. It just pulls like a train. It's amazing. And that's one thing all of these X5s feel good at. They're very, very heavy cars, but they don't seem to go any slower than, for example, the E46 with the same engine. And that is amazing. Maybe it's just the tuning, but it does feel good. One thing with this car, I mean, in the early 2000s, 1999, 2000, when this car came out, it was always lauded for its handling. And I tell you what, even in 2021, it's got good handling. It does stick to the road. It does go round bends. More so, actually, than the bolstering in the seats can support. There's very little bolstering in these seats, and you do find if you go around corners too quickly, you kind of like get pushed out of the seat. And that's, you kind of trying to brace yourself with your legs and your arms, and that's not good hanging on the steering wheel, trying to brace yourself. But overall, the car, it is actually still fun. It's a lot of fun to drive. Brakes on it are absolutely awesome. It's a great package. No wonder back in the early 2000s, everybody who was anybody had a BMW X5. Here in Hong Kong, there were so many of these things on the road everywhere. Of course, Mercedes got there first with the ML, but that was still a ladder frame vehicle. This was the first complete body chassis monocoque vehicle in this segment, if you actually disregard the Lexus, the RX 300. But this from Europe was the first, and it was much better than the ML. If you've ever driven an ML, yeah, they're good cars, very practical, but you can feel its agricultural DNA. Its DNA is a 5 Series. The E39 was probably one of the finest cars BMW ever built, and this was based on that platform. So it's got the electronics plus some electronics that from Land Rover when BMW owned them. I think like the hill assist system, a couple of other bits, a couple of the other electronics are already wired up, or there are parts of the harness ready to wire up, things like Bluetooth, etc., similar things like that. Why BMW didn't put them in the standard back then, particularly here, I do not know. It's one thing that is missing. I mean, this is basic. BMW always have been basic, but the car itself is more than the sum total of its parts. So it's a great chassis, it's great steering, good brakes, it sounds good, it goes very well, it's very practical, load of space in the rear there, and very little has been made since that can actually better it. Of course, technology moves on, so these things are much more electronic now. If you go to 2020, I was just driving the other day, full TFT dash, full TFT display in the middle. It literally cossets you. I mean, you put your foot down and it just goes. But of course, smooth as silk. Now, I've driven this right up against the E70 as well. Just the other week I was dealing with the E70. I drove this to get the E70, and I had to drive the E70 back to pick this back up. And maybe that was not a great example of an E70, but there wasn't a huge amount of difference between the two cars. You know, it was it's getting sunny now. In fact, one thing I've always liked about the E70 is, particularly in the 3 litre engine, is the power. It's got more power than this 256 horsepower or something like that. But it does have extra weight as well. It's got all that air suspension and everything else to lug around, a lot more electronics. And it doesn't actually feel any more lively than this. I remember driving the first of these, the first one I ever drove, the 3 litre one, many years ago. I remember it was silver with a black interior or grey interior, I can't remember. I thought, this is a great car. It really is a good car. I think back then, I mean, the E70 had just come out. And I drove a couple of the V8 versions, which were absolutely brilliant. And I'm quite surprised that 10-12 years later I've got this and it still feels fresh, it still feels good. That steering feels a little agricultural, but there's a lot of feel for it. You can really, when you go into the bends, you kind of got a good idea of what the front wheels are doing. The car itself, the grip is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it. Now I'm actually going to sell this car now. I bought this, dry lips. I wanted to make a video on this when I bought it last year, and I wanted to go through it, but obviously with the COVID and everything's been going on, I've been a bit slowed down on what I'm doing. So it's only now, oh God, we're February now, 2021. COVID's still rampant, although there are some encouraging signs from around the world, and I'm hoping to get some more car videos together, particularly on some of these older cars. I mean, they're absolute bargains. Here in Hong Kong, cars this age are always consigned to the scrap heap. People just want new all the time. So once a car gets to over 6 years of age, which is when it needs its first roadworthiness test, they get just tossed to the side. The depreciation's huge. Some of these cars that come on the market, I mean, some deserve to be cheap as they are. BMW 7 Series, those things were just garbage, rubbish, trash, whatever you want to call it. But there are some absolute bargains out there. Old Mercedes S-Class. Again, the climate here can kill a car very quickly, so you've got to be very careful. But something like this, which is now, I mean, it's become a little bit cultish, this car. When I bought it, and I started looking on Facebook and what have you, I always have a look at the groups, same as when I'm riding my motorbikes. I always look at the groups of the same bike to see, just for assistance, for ideas, for help if you need it. And the E53, there are so many different groups around the world, and so many worldwide groups. They seem to have a universal love. There's a lot of people who really love these cars. There's a lot of people who really want these cars. And that's a good thing, because they are a good car. Unfortunately, as with all cars that get to a certain age, you do start getting to the point where parts and that become unavailable or very, very difficult to get. And that is happening now with this car. Although in saying that, there are a lot of aftermarket pieces, there's a lot of breakers, so you can usually find what you need, what you want. It's just a matter of if you have enough patience and know kind of how to search on Google, on the internet. If you do, you'll uncover some absolutely amazing bargains. There's some absolutely amazing little bits and bobs that you can add to your car. I'm not going to add any aftermarket parts to this. As I say, I'm going to sell it anyway. It's why I kept the original wheels on. It's more practical if you need tyres. And I think one thing I don't agree with, a lot of people are lowering these cars, and I have no idea why you would lower an X5. You buy an X5 because it's a high car. Lowering it seems to defeat the object. I mean, if you're going to lower it, why don't you just buy an E39 Touring? That's a damn sight more practical than lowering one of these. But hey, who knows? It's just one of those things, isn't it? Here we are. I mean, we're stuck in traffic now. Car just smooth as silk going through, no problem at all. There's no hesitation in this engine, there's no roughness, no nothing. It's that lovely silky smooth 6-cylinder BMW engine, and it just picks up when you want it. It's great. So here we go. Up the hill. Now I'm heading home. I've done some video. I just wanted to have a quick run through this car. You know, I think it's a nice piece of kit. I think, you know, I'm hoping that'll be an enthusiast buys it, because it's well worth buying. I've sorted out all the problems. I'm the one who's done the cooling system. I'm the one who's done the transmission, fixed all the little niggles around. It's going to make somebody a really, really nice car. Since we shot that video the other day, I put the car up for sale. In fact, that evening, and by 2 p.m. the next day, I'd sold it. I'd made all my money back and some more. And in fact, I had people afterwards asking to buy it for more than asking price. I guess I'm quite surprised at just how in demand these are now, even in here in Hong Kong. Which begs the question, should you actually buy an E53? If you just get the cheapest thing that you can find, or even that you're given, it will have the shirt off your back. It will be so expensive. But if you spend the time and find a good one, then you're going to have a great time and totally enjoy the car. Anyway, please like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.